Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. So today I'm going to be following up with a review of this WISHDOIT WSD9017, which I unboxed recently. Now the specifications and dimensions are going to be on screen so we can get straight into it. So many people who see this watch, you're going to have the same reaction I did. The first impressions, it looks like a good modern dive watch, but that one feature which definitely piques your interest is that dial, and in particular those lume block indices and perhaps the handset even, inspired by a chap called Christopher Ward. It's also got a great color selection, decent specifications. It features the automatic Miyota 8215 movement, and it does come with at a really budget price, around £103, which is what I paid for this out of the sales. Now when you take it out of the box, spend just a few minutes with it. The main thing which becomes quite clear, and it seems off, is that there is an evident mismatch between the quality of the case and the build quality in particular, and the feel and the quality of the bracelet attached to the case. For example, the case is actually pretty good. It features those polished bevels that we all love to see on cases, and they have very crisp definition between the brushing on the sides and the lug tips. The lug tips feature slightly coarse brushing in a circular fashion, which is okay for a budget tool watch. But then on the sides, you've got much softer horizontal brushing, which again does feel pretty good. It's at a really good standard that we expect from some of the better brands. Now, in terms of some functionality of the case, when we look at the crown, yeah, it doesn't give you any indication that it's a poorly built watch at all. It's pretty decent, very smooth threading. Yeah, good enough action on the crown. And then when we turn the watch over, this is something I did like. It's been a long time since we've been a shark on the case back, so I'd say it's a bit nostalgic, giving us flashbacks of the good old days of Heimdallr and San Martin when they did incorporate that shark on the back of the cases. The bezel, first and foremost, in terms of play, there's just a tiny bit of sideways play, nothing vertical, no bounce in the bezel, and to be fair, it's not too bad. I've passed off bezels similar to this in the past. Rotation 120 click. And yeah, it's decent. There's a couple of spots where it does get a little inconsistent in the rotation. The resistance goes between very light to, where it gets stuck on either sides. So consistency is about 85 to 90%. But again, it's not the worst bezel I've seen, and I have passed off bezels like this before. But while you have the watch in hand, the bracelet, 100% it feels so different. I think one of the things that you will notice is that it is quite rattly, due to those very cheap spring bars. They're quite slim, so it gives you a lot of side-to-side flexibility, and the finishing on the bracelet also doesn't come across as being good as you get it on the case. You can see there's a few shortcuts being taken on the finishing of the bracelet, but at the same time the female end links also pretty decent, solid of course, and the gapping is just a touch bigger than I'd like it, but it isn't uneven. And there actually isn't a lot of play in there, so it's pretty solid. So you can see where I'm going with this here. It is a bit of a mixed bag, particularly when you look at other features. So you look at the clasp, pretty decent, nice soft brushing on the top, polished bevels on either side, and it's got a very practical 5 micro adjustments with milled internals, which is these day and age an absolute minimum to have on watches. And I have looked at this watch under living room lighting, and in that case, the bracelet finishing isn't that evident versus the actual case. But what you can't seem to get away from is the actual in-hand feel. The main thing, of course, is that dial. That's the focal point, and the only reason this watch seems interesting. Those lume block type markers and those large white skeleton handset, which, to be fair, are really well made. They've been cut amazingly well. The points are sharp and crisp, and the length is spot on, and you also get great legibility. The logo also suits the watch, as does the rest. But the lume block markers, the sole reason you looked at this and thought this is pretty good, the lume blocks are actually duds, and it is absolute abysmal when you take a look at the lume. There's barely any glow on those blocks. I think they're actually plastic raised markers. It's the word patchiness doesn't even come into it, because a lot of them don't seem to be lumed at all. You get glimpses around the markers. Regarding the handset, you can see it's very, very patchy. In fact, the brightest thing on this watch in terms of lume is that lumed bezel insert. And I haven't seen lume this poor in a very long time. In fact, I don't think I've seen it this poor, right? Even Pagani design, which we had a lot of problem with, they still had a dull, even glow. Even though you don't see the lume that often, but it's that one defining feature you bought the watch for and it hasn't been executed properly. This is why I focus on execution of watches, and I don't think there's any point doing something unless it is executed to an acceptable level. Now, aside from the lume, even with the mismatch case and bracelet, I think the watch is actually right for £100, and this is the normal standard at this price point, minus the really crap lume. It should be a lot better than that. But this is why I have to kind of mention it, because when you see watch dives coming in with a watch that is similarly priced, but it's actually built 3 times better, it really actually makes you go WTF. And it does skew your expectations. Chinese watches are indeed a mad world to be in. And I would say that it is a bit of a shame with this WISHDOIT watch. On wrist, it does have a decent presence. You know, like I said, it's got the looks, it's got great potential. But that mismatch build quality is also quite more noticeable on the wrist, especially if you have been wearing some of the Watch Dive's latest watches. And I think most budget brands need to realize that they won't be able to keep up with Watch Dives. So they need to price their watches a little bit more, but ensure much better execution. And I think people will still buy. And I think about now, people can really appreciate build quality that is coming from China. So I'd say that concludes my review for today. If you had your eyes on this, I suggest you look at something else. But if you still like the looks and you don't really mind that there's no lume, then yeah, that's your choice totally. So let me know your thoughts below in the comment section. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.